Hi, I'm your host, Joe Vitar, and welcome to this week's episode of Hunting Matters. We've got a great guest for you this week, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Dan Adler. Please welcome Dan Adler to the show.
Hey, thank you, Joe. Thanks for your whole team. It's great to see you guys again.
Our guest today, Dan Adler, is the owner and outfitter of North America's largest big game hunting operation and guide service, Diamond Outfitters. He also owns Zero Outfitter Fees, which we're going to talk about here in just a few minutes. Dan won the highly respected Hunter of the Year award back in 2017, and he's an easily recognizable public figure who can be found speaking at nearly all of the national hunting conventions. Dan co-starred on the Best of the West TV show for over a decade, and he's hosted international hunts on 6 continents. He's also an agency manager for Rolling Bones Outdoors, and his speaking engagements are considered by many as do not miss events, as they are not only educational but also informative. Dan's also a retired U.S. veteran, U.S. Air Force officer, and his talks are often infused with patriotism and humor. So, Dan, man, I've been excited to talk to you again for quite some time. You built the largest big game hunting guide service in North America. How did your journey into the outfitting world begin?
That's a great question. And actually, believe it or not, I'm a first generation hunter in my family. So I had some fishermen in my family, but I actually didn't get introduced to hunting until one of my good friends playing basketball on the concrete floor courts of Phoenix, Arizona, Greg, and I got in a fight in a basketball game, and we got in trouble for throwing punches in a basketball game in 5th grade, as kids do. So while we're sitting on the fence, we started talking about fishing, and then he said, yeah, I think I'm going 4-wheeling this weekend. And I said, 4-wheeling, what's that? And he said, yeah, this is where me and my dad, we leave at like 4 a.m. We stop at Dunkin' Donuts, we get donuts and hot chocolate. And then we go off the grid, we go off on dirt roads, and we look at elk and we look at deer, and we, shoot 22s at cans and eat lunch and come home. And I had never done anything like that. And I said, where do I sign up for that? So even though we were fighting and throwing fisticuffs on the basketball court just minutes earlier, next thing I know, we're talking about, hey, maybe I can get invited with you by your dad to go on a 4-wheeling trip with you. So I finally invited myself enough to where they let me go with them. Went up to northern Arizona, Blue Ridge Reservoir. I saw Rocky Mountain elk for the first time when I was about 11 or 12 years old. And you could say the rest is history. My love for the outdoors and my passion for the outdoors just escalated from there. You mentioned at the onset, I've built North America's largest guide service, and I appreciate the compliment. Mm-hmm. I will say my team is built. I've just surrounded myself with great people in my Air Force career, my corporate world career, and Diamond Outfitters. I've always been really fortunate. I don't know if I'm just blessed. My name has always been at the tip of the spear and above the door, but my secret to success is only that I succeed through other people, whether it's Matt Woodward or my wife or Teresa Barnaby or Tim Green. Go down the list of mentors and friends. I am really just a byproduct of really knowing that if I'm the smartest person in the room, I need to go find another room. Be the dumbest person in the room, surround yourself with those people where I'm the dumbest person in the room, and then our businesses did really great. So we're really fortunate, 6 states, 2 countries, and growing, as you said, plus our membership base. So I've just surrounded myself with great people, and we're now hunting 19 different big game species on over 42 million unfenced free range acres. And I just consider myself the luckiest hunter in the world. I really do, Joe.
Hunting Matters is sponsored by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Under the visionary leadership of founder Johnny Morris, Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's is leading North America's largest conservation movement. Together with their partners in conservation, they're positively shaping the future of the outdoors through donations, grant making, and advocacy. The 501c3 Outdoor Fund raises funds to support conservation efforts by activating more than 200 million passionate sportsmen and women, rounding up their purchases in Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's stores and online. Visit BassPro.com or Cabela's.com today.
So Zero Outfitter Fees. Let's talk about what that is and how that model has changed the game for hunters and outfitters alike.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So Zero Outfitter Fees is my hunt club. So if you've heard of Diamond Outfitters over the last 20 years, you may not yet have heard about Zero Outfitter Fees. Zero Outfitter Fees is our sister company, same ownership within Diamond Outfitters, but it's our hunting club, and it's literally taken North America and the world by storm. We actually have a ton of international clients in it too. As you know, if you've hunted for any great period of time, it feels like the opportunities to hunt out west through draws has become more difficult. At the same time, it feels like the cost of going on a landowner or over-the-counter hunt has skyrocketed. Plus, so many states in the last 8 to 10 years and beyond have moved to what a lot of consumers see as complicated draw systems. So Zero Outfitter Fees started when I gave a speaking engagement at the Alabama Birmingham World Deer Expo in 2015, and after which a 21-year-old West Virginia coal miner came up to me and was so inspired by my elk seminar. He said, I don't know how many years it's going to take me to save up with you, I may only get to do one elk hunt with you in my life, but I'm going to do it with you. Like, I'm specifically going to hire you to do it. And I was really humbled at the time. I was really excited about the time. I thought, geez, of all the great elk outfitters, this young guy who does one of America's most hardest jobs wants to actually hunt with me. And somewhere between meeting him and being excited and humbled and going to bed that night, I was mad and I was angry. And I was mad and I was angry because I was like, why does this guy think that hunting the West, drawing a tag, or being able to afford a hunt out West is a once in a lifetime opportunity? And if you're listening today and you feel like that, you're the reason why Zero Outfitter Fees was created. Zero Outfitter Fees does about 12 things for our customers. Joe, the most important things we do for our customers, the most two important things that we do is we save them time and we save them money. We save them time because we are a complete 50-state application service. So it doesn't even matter if it's a goofy one-off fishing sturgeon draw. Every state that has a draw, Zero Outfitter Fees members are entered in the draw. So we save you time because that's over 150 draws that most consumers don't want to spend time on that. They don't want to do the research on the units, the hunt codes, the zones, where the drought is, where the wildfires have been, where the predators are overnumbered, where there's disease, where the game and fish has increased or decreased tags. Like, that could take dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of hours of your time to research all those. So my team, my 61 guides on my team and I, we do all that research for you. We put you in the draws and we save you money because specifically in Arizona, New Mexico, Wyoming, Utah, Nevada, when we get you drawn for any of 37 or 38 hunts there for 14 different iconic North American species, your outfitter fees are paid. So if you draw what would normally be a $10, $12, $15, $18,000 sheep hunt, elk hunt, deer hunt, ibex hunt, antelope hunt, bison hunt, Shiras moose hunt, you name it, Zero Outfitter Fees pays for your hunt. So you would literally get a contract for $18,000 with a zero balance. It would say Zero Outfitter Fees has paid your $18,000, your balance is zero. We've saved, since in 5 years, we've saved clients $2.17 million. And in 2024 alone, 54 hunters saved over $600,000 in outfitter fees that ZOF paid for our clients' behalf. So it does a lot for you, but the primary two are we save you time and we save you money. And hunters love that. They appreciate their time and they appreciate knowing that their outfitter fees are paid by me. And they appreciate the leverage knowing they're already booked with one of North America's best outfitters when they draw. So they don't have to think about the draws. They don't have to think about what to do once they've drawn, and they don't have to pay for their hunt.
You know, Dan, navigating the Western state tag and hunting puzzle is a challenge for many hunters, even those hunters who've been through it before. So every state's rules and regulations are different. Why is every state so different, and why is it so difficult for out-of-state hunters to learn the system in each state?
Well, the first thing to know is there is zero continuity, zero communication from state to state when it comes to how they handle their draws. There are some states that have no point systems, some states that have a bonus point system, some states that have a preference point system, loyalty point, point guard. All these states have their own different agendas and different financial cost basis. And so there is no communication. There's communication in other levels of those departments, I know, because I work firsthand with them. But when it comes to their individual draws, their states, their commissions, they do things completely different. And it's why you'll see in our TV show, our podcast, our webinars, why we are very specific where Zero Outfitter Fees operates compared to where it doesn't, because Zero Outfitter Fee hunts have to be draw hunts where clients can draw the first year, even if they don't have points. That's places like Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, Wyoming, but not places, for example, potentially like Colorado, which is a preference point state where for the good hunts, if you don't have a minimum amount of points, you're not even eligible. So that's another piece of leverage we give our clients. Is we know the difference. We know the good from the bad. We're never, you hear clients all the time that, oh, I put in for the same hunt on my own that I did last year for a trophy bull elk hunt with 15 points. I drew this year, but somehow that same hunt code this year was a cow elk hunt I could have drawn without any points. And now they've lost their points of 15 years and all the money that went with it. So it's really important now, to your point, Joe, more than ever, that hunters have a very purposeful, tactical strategy, whether they're doing it on their own or they work with somebody like us at Zero Outfitter Fees and Diamond Outfitters to do all that heavy lifting for them. I always like to think about that old infomercial where the guys selling those mini ovens used to say, set it and forget it.
Yeah,
That's the leverage we wanted to bring to our hunters, because I've watched it over the last 20 years. You've watched it over the last 20 years. It's not just seemingly more difficult to draw some of these hunts. It is more difficult to draw some of these hunts. There was a big bump during COVID, just in the last 5 years, where people started really caring about this idea of field to table and knowing where their food came from. And there was a big bump in new hunters to the market, which is great as a conservationist first, as you and I both are. But it definitely made that draw odds feel like it's gotten a little bit more complicated.
Yeah.
As you mentioned, states have also moved to allow non-residents to be more and more limited, from 25% down to 15%. In a lot of states out west now, 10% is the maximum cap on some of the non-resident hunts. And while that seems bad or negative on the surface, what that's done for us at Zero Outfitter Fees is now we're using more of a shotgun approach by putting you in for elk in more than one state, more than two states, more than three states. We're using a shotgun style approach to get your names in more draws, get your names in more hats, more buckets, so that you have better draws. And people might say, well, that sounds expensive if I'm applying for more states when I'm used to only applying for one or two. Now you want me to apply for maybe five. Yes, because we can 5x your draws, and you're spending more money on licenses. But because you now know that you have zero outfitter fees when we get you drawn for the hunt, you don't have to pay the 10, 12, 15, 18, 20 grand for the hunt. So you're covered, you're protected by that hunting insurance, if you will. So it does seem like it's gotten harder. It does feel like it's gotten more complicated. And you either have to be a PhD level expert on doing it, which we encourage people to do that, like to do that. And I recognize and acknowledge those of you that like to do that. But for those of you that are like, man, I don't want to think about that. I just want to know I'm putting in for the best hunts with the best trophy genetics, closest to the rut as possible, with the best draws, and to have the peace of mind. I know I've got an outfitter already hired when I draw. I don't have to go find one. Because you know, Joe, as soon as somebody draws, they go to the internet if they don't know somebody. And then on the internet, you don't know if it's a good or bad reference. Then by the time you've actually tried to figure out the good from the bad, you've checked references, things like that, call the outfitter back. If they're worth their skin, they're already booked. In our system, your apps are done, your draws are done, and you already have a guaranteed outfitter. You don't have to go find one when you're drawn.
So for somebody who's new to hunting the Western states or new to the tag system, what are the biggest misconceptions or things that a hunter should know about to better understand the type of hunting, that type of hunting in the Western states, and also the tag process?
Yeah, I'd say the first mistake people make is they don't apply at all. You know, they heard from somebody at church or school or work that, man, my neighbor took 20, 30 years to draw this tag. Well, that person may have been having a lot of different things going on in their life. They may have been applying for tags that they weren't even eligible to non-residents. They may have only been applying for points for several years, not trying to draw a tag. Typically, when you hear somebody say that tag takes 10, 20, 30 years to draw, they're not actually informed at the highest level of what's really taking place out west. Or they're applying for hunts, what's called a max point pool. When you hear somebody talk about max point pool, where I drew a tag with 20, 30 years in the max point pool. Well, Joe, we know 11.3 million people bought a hunting license last year. And of those, only 50 to 60 are really consistently in any state's max point pool. So 99.999% of hunters aren't in that pool and shouldn't be using that language. But because magazines use it, because the podcasts talk about it, because the TV shows talk about it, there's this perception that I shouldn't even try. So that's one of many mistakes they use. I actually just did a blog post on 7 deadly sins all Western hunters or hopeful Western state hunters should know about. We'll make sure we get you a copy of it. The second thing of those 7 deadly sins I'd want to tell you is people are applying for bonus points instead of the hunts. And they're saying, I'm not really that interested in hunting this year. I'm just going to apply for a point. And that way the years following, I'll have better draws. Well, they're not wrong. By buying a point, they're taking action and can feel good about they're doing something. They're taking a step. But what they're not understanding is how these draw processes really work. For a lot of these desirable Western hunts, you have almost as good a chance of drawing a random tag your first year as your 5th year as your 10th year, especially for those once in a lifetime hunts. The hunts that are considered once in a lifetime by the states. That's some of your free range bison hunts, some of your bighorn sheep hunts, your Shiras moose hunts, your Rocky Mountain goat hunts, things like that. And so they say, oh, I'll just apply for a point and then down the road, I'll apply for the hunt. When you do that, ladies and gentlemen, you're crushing your draws. You're crushing the opportunity to draw a random tag. So yes, if you're a military and you're going to deploy overseas and you know there's no way you could draw a tag, or if your daughter's getting married or you're going to New Zealand, there's no way you could hunt if you drew a tag, then sure, put in for points. It's the next best thing. But it's not like the second best thing. Like the first 10 best things are apply, then do bonus points.
Right.
When you do a bonus point, you're raising your hand and you're telling that game and fish, I don't want to draw this year no matter what. But ladies and gentlemen, odds are you yourself or you know somebody that's this type of hunter. I'm going to put in for this hunt. I don't expect to draw it. But if I draw a desert bighorn sheep tag the first year I apply in Arizona, I'll quit my job to make sure I can go, right? We know people like that, Joe. So the second biggest mistake people make is only applying for points because they think they can't draw. No, you've got to fix your strategy, fix your mindset. apply, apply, apply. You're going to get the points anyways if you don't draw. Get your name in the hat. That's how you materially increase, sometimes exponentially, your draw odds, especially when you're looking at a multitude of Western states. And that is a major component of the strategy used with our clients here.
It's funny. No matter how well you know this land, you always seem to get lost in it. That's because it's your escape, your place to reconnect to nature and yourself. At Capital Farm Credit, we're proud to help people like you purchase recreational land where you can hunt, fish, four-wheel, or simply get lost in. To learn how we can help you secure land like this, visit CapitalFarmCredit.com. Capital Farm Credit. Together, we're better.
You know, Dan, I know over the years you've worked with countless first-time hunters as well as experienced hunters. What's your approach to managing the experience for both types of hunters to make it both successful as well as memorable?
Right. So we often say here that our job, some people say, what is our job? What is our mission? They'd say it's to kill the biggest elk on the mountain or shoot the biggest mule deer in the world or whatever it is. Actually, at our team meeting, and we're actually having our annual team meeting this weekend, we always say every year, remember what our mission statement is. We make dreams come true. When somebody asks me what I do for a living, we make dreams come true for the experienced hunter and the new hunter. What is so fun, Joe, about hunting with somebody for the first time, a new hunter, and it doesn't matter if they're a child, a man or a woman that's in their 20s, 30s, 70s, or 80s. They are such an open eye, open ear client that they just want to take it all in. And I mean, think about this. In some cases, we're dealing with people who don't know the difference between an elk track, an antelope track, and a turkey track. And so we get to go back in time as guides and professional hunters. We get to go back in time and find that exciting moment in our life when we were learning some of those things, and we get to share it at that most elemental and basic level that it just makes the experience so fun. And to see them then be successful. And remember, success can mean something to a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And usually the outcome with us is, of course, is they get their animal unless they miss. And so in those moments where they're getting their first animal, I tell my guides all the time, you could be on your 7th elk hunt in a row in the last 7 weeks. But the excitement level you have to bring every week to every hunt goes back to that person who, like that West Virginia coal miner, may be their one and only shot in their mind of ever doing an elk hunt. So it may be your 7th hunt in 7 weeks as a guide, but you've got to have that fundamental enthusiasm, positive attitude, positive mindset. Let's charge that hill, positivity every time a client steps in camp. And again, for the new client, the new hunter who's never set foot in the outdoors, this might be their first time away from their office, their first time away from their family, the first time they've been away from their devices for 7, 10, 12, 15 days in a row. You just don't know. So they are really open-eyed, open ears. They are just sponges. They want to take it all in. And one of the coolest things about this is, in that example where it might be the 7th client a guy has taken in the last 7 weeks, it's easy over the coming next few weeks when we're now in mule deer camp doing the same thing for 6 or 7 weeks for a short term, not really, but I'll use it as an example to quote unquote forget about that client from 6 weeks ago because you're buried now in mule deer hunting. But here's the thing. Our clients will never, ever forget us. They will never forget that experience, and we will never forget how we made them feel. So the opportunity to do that for somebody, I take it very humbly. I take it like this. Somebody's spending a significant amount of money to hunt with us, potentially, unless they're a zero outfitter fees client. They are spending a significant amount of time away from their family. They're spending a significant time away from work, which means vacation days. So you take somebody who's willing to take their hard-earned time, their hard-earned vacation days, and time away from their family to hang out with a guy like me for 7 days just to hunt elk, just to hunt deer, just to hunt oryx. Like that should be one of the most humbling jobs on the North American continent. And that's the attitude me and my guides hopefully take to the field every single day, because these clients do want to learn. They want to take it all in. And when they go home, they want to tell everybody what they learned, and we don't want to let them down.
Oftentimes I like to ask our guests about funny or memorable moments. Can you relay to us or tell us about a funny or memorable moment from the field that still makes you laugh when you think about it?
Oh my gosh, there are so many experiences. Definitely one of my favorite all-time experiences combines, I think hunters, generically speaking, we're pretty good practical jokers. And a few years back, I had this amazing opportunity to hunt with a bunch of Major League Baseball players and Major League veterans who have now become friends of the company and have joined a lot of other famous celebrities and athletes we've been blessed to hunt with over the years. And in this particular instance, we brought some VIPs to camp. I'll give you names here in a minute. And what had happened in this particular instance was we had a client in camp who found out that Robin Yount was going to be in our camp. And if you don't know Robin Yount is a 2-time MLB MVP, but he is the only MVP who's won it from both the infield and outfield position. So he's 2-time MLB MVP. Well, my best friend, the guy I told you introduced me to hunting earlier when I was in 5th grade, the guy I got in a fight with on the basketball court, his in-laws are from Milwaukee, which is where Robin Yount played and won his MVPs. So when he found out that Robin Yount was going to be in camp, he told his wife, who told her parents, who are like, oh my gosh, that's our favorite player of all time. And so they sent Greg down, unbeknownst to me initially, with these 2 beautiful, I think they were like 11 by 8 pictures, color pictures of him to autograph that they wanted to frame. So we're driving down to Sonora Deer Camp in Mexico, and Greg starts telling me, hey, I hope it's okay, but Megan sent me down with these pictures. And of course, I know Robin pretty well at this point. And he's like, you think, Robin would be okay signing something like this and giving us an autograph for my in-laws? I'm like, oh, dude, he's such a nice guy. He'll be super excited to do it for you. Don't worry about it. Now, fast forward to the first day of the hunt. Greg's met him. We're all out hunting, separated by day, but together for dinner and breakfast. And I noticed the first day he didn't ask Robin for the autograph, and I didn't really think anything of it. The second day, I noticed he hadn't asked for the autograph either. By the third day, I started asking questions like, hey, aren't you going to ask for that autograph from Robin Yount? Wasn't that like a big deal? And he's like, yeah, I don't know. The guy's on vacation. I don't want to mess it up. Maybe this is like his time away. He doesn't want to do that kind of thing. And I was like, okay, you do you, but he's a really nice guy. He'd be happy to do it. Day 4, he still hasn't asked him. And now, like I said, most hunters are pretty good practical jokers. And this is my best friend of 40 years and Greg. And now Greg still hasn't asked him by day 4. So I decide that I'm going to go make a little walk over to Robin Yount's tent. I knock on the tent. He says, come in. I said, hey, Robin, you don't know this, but I'd like to share with you that my friend Greg, who's here in this camp, has been sitting on these pictures for the last 4 days, and he's been too scared to ask you to sign it because he thinks he's going to ruin your vacation, blah, blah, blah. And of course, Robin just laughs and says, that's not the case. And I said, look, here's the deal. I'm going to really push him to ask you for this autograph tomorrow at breakfast, the last day of our hunt. And if you don't mind, I would love you just to hammer him with how you just be so upset and so, how could you do this type thing? Well, what's great about having a guy like Robin Yount, who's been in dugouts and major league clubhouses for over 2 decades, is you don't have to tell him how to do a practical joke. You're just like, hey, can you run with this football? Because when Robin put his hand up, he's like, I got you, Dan. I know exactly what you need. I was like, okay, we're good. Like anybody else in the world, I might have given more specifics. Like, I want you to do A, B, C, and D. But as soon as he looked at me, he's like, I got you. I know exactly what to do. I was like, okay, we're good. So I went back to my tent, which I was sharing with Greg. And I said, hey, tomorrow's the last day. Make sure you get Robin at breakfast, just in case he leaves at lunchtime. Make sure you get this autograph for your in-laws. I don't want you to ever live that down or feel like it's a missed opportunity. So myself and 2 other people knew about this. One of them, thank God, was my cameraman. Okay. So sure enough, breakfast comes the last day. Greg still didn't bring the pictures up. I look at him like, dude, you need to go get your pictures. So finally he leaves. Now, a lot of people in the room don't even know it's coming because I didn't want a lot of people to know it, kind of ruin it. Well, he comes back and cameras are filming. It's on our website on one of our Mexico Coos Deer Hunt episodes. You can watch it. You will die laughing. But Greg literally goes up to him and he sounds like a 4-year-old boy at the grade school dance. Like he's like, hey, Robin. So I was wondering, my in-laws are really big fans, like the whole deal, right? And just so shy. And then Robin just lays into him, like, oh my God, is this a joke? I'm on vacation. I come here to get away from this crap. Are you kidding me right now? It just drills him and drills him and drills him. And Greg is so red, so embarrassed. And he tries to walk away and Robin won't let him. He just nails into him again and just makes him feel this big. And Greg starts to try and walk away for a second time. And Robin lays into him again to the point where Greg literally looks at Robin and goes, I'm so sorry I even asked. I am so embarrassed. I feel like I've ruined everybody's time. Because there was 12 people in the kitchen when this all went down. And he literally turns and like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, he just puts his head down and walks away with these 2 pictures. And Robin still hasn't let him off the hook.
Oh, wow.
And he's all the way back to sit down in the chair. You could hear a pin drop in there, Joe, before Rob and Yelp finally just explodes and erupts into laughter, and the gig is up and everybody's laughing. It's all on film. It's amazing. But that's just one that comes to mind of some amazing, amazing memories. And again, to those of you that are new to this hunting and outfitting and outdoor fishing world and the outdoor space, like, this is one of the reasons we do it. Catching a fish or getting your elk or your deer is like the cherry on the sundae, but just having these moments, these times where you just get to relax, be in God's creation, enjoy the outdoors. That's why we do it. It's just cleverly disguised as hunting or fishing or camping. But man, if you are new and you're thinking about doing this for the first time, or if you're the most experienced hunter, Joe, one thing I've been telling people lately on my podcast and my webinars is there are times where people on their deathbeds where they think about or even share with those at their bedside the things they regret the most. And I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about those in my own lifetime. And one thing I believe I have never heard, and I don't think we'll ever hear, is somebody on their deathbed saying, I hunted too much.
Right.
I went to the outdoors too much in my life. They may say, I wish I had taken my kid hunting more. I wish I may have fished more. I wish I took that extra trip to Hawaii with my wife. But they're not saying, I wish I hadn't hunted so much. So regardless of your experience level, go enjoy God's creation every chance you get. If it's a weekend, if it's 10 days, these are those memories. I mean, spending a moment camp with guys like that, go book a hunt, even if it's by yourself with an outfitter, where you would normally go with the buddy, just to take the chance that you make a new best friend in one of these hunting camps, that you run into a robin yout in a hunting camp, right? You just never know. Get outside more often. In fact, that's one of our taglines at your outfitter fees: hunt more, spend less, right? Just get out there more, whatever it takes to get you in the woods more. Find that opportunity and take advantage of it, no matter how long or how short.
Nobody wants to imagine an emergency on a hunting trip, but when the unexpected happens, you want the team of medical and security experts at Global Rescue to be there for you. Global Rescue Operations Centers are staffed by experienced personnel, and you'll always speak to an expert on the first call. Global Rescue provides unparalleled capabilities to transport members to the hospital of their choice, not just the closest. So trade what-ifs for peace of mind with convenient travel services designed for the unexpected. Learn more at globalrescue.com/hunting matters. Dan, as you know, conservation is at the core of what Houston Safari Club is about, and I know it's very, very important to you. How do your operations contribute to wildlife conservation efforts on the ground?
One of the biggest things, especially once I had kids who are now 18 and 16, was making sure I give back, making sure there's a hunting legacy for my children, grandchildren, but also for the United States of America and the world. Because as a veteran, you know, you think you're patriotic before you go into the military and raise your right hand. You think you're patriotic when you go in the military and you're saving your country. I will tell you, I am more patriotic now that I haven't served my country at that level in 20 years than I ever was before. And protecting hunting and fishing and conservation as a whole is cornerstone to my life. In fact, Friday of last week, I was at the Arizona Game and Fish Commission. Very last minute notice that there was a ban. The guys that got rejected in Colorado this year had come to Arizona. We're trying to pass a hound ban and a GPS tracking collar on hounds ban in Arizona under the carpet, like it got swept under the rug. I don't know that any of the conservation organizations hardly knew about it. So we all blasted down there to make sure our voices were heard, and we won overwhelmingly. And I don't even know that it truly went to a vote. But to your point, when we started the business 20 years ago, we were broke. I was right out of the military. If you could fog a mirror, we would take you hunting. Bad business decisions, life decisions in your young 20s, the things you do. But as the business grew and as we started seeing this conservation picture in a bigger light, and my television and public speaking career side of things really, really took off, my wife and I made a very conscious decision to make sure we were giving back at a higher level than we were comfortable with. I want to say that again, that we were giving back at a level that we were uncomfortable with. And the theory is the more you give, the more you get. If we gave more than we were comfortable with, we knew our lives would be blessed. We'd get more back than we gave. And it was last year. That's why I was glad you teed this up. It was last year, our 19th year in existence, that Diamond Outfitters went over $1 million in charitable donations to the country's biggest conservation organizations like yours and your peers. And at 48 years old, you know, that I know in the eyes of a lot of organizations, they get a lot bigger over 20-year donations than what my wife and I were to be able to provide. But at 48 years old, at 47 at the time, to know that, you know, we had donated through hunts, speaking engagements, but mostly through hunting and outdoor experiences, long-range hunting and ethics training courses, things like that, that we had donated all throughout the Western states, Zero Outfitter Fees memberships. We went over $1 million gross to those hunting organizations.
Wow.
So that was a big deal to us.
Wow.
I always say, you know, hunters better than anybody else put their money where their mouth is. We need to continue to do that, because the other trend we're seeing is that, like this meeting Friday at the Arizona Game and Fish Department, the other side shows up with big money. And this time we were lucky they didn't show up in big numbers. But since they lost Friday morning, Friday afternoon, they're already talking about putting a petition on the ballot for November of 2026, not only to ban hunting with hounds, but if they can't get that passed, to ban hunting with hounds with GPS collars, making them take the collars away. We can all, you know, go over the obvious reasons why that's a horrible idea and would take us back 100 years in technology and protecting dogs and protecting wildlife, when you can call a dog back very easily through training now. So hunting's still under attack. Hunting and fishing still under attack, even with a very pro-hunting, pro-Second Amendment administration. You know, we never know how long they're going to be in office or their impact's going to be. So, you know, if you're a new hunter, getting involved with something like Houston Safari Club is a huge deal. Volunteering, you somewhere in your area, there's going to be an organization where you can volunteer. You know, if you don't want to do money, you can always volunteer your time, work on a water hole project, work on a fencing project, work on something that helps wildlife type project. So there's no pun intended, a million different ways to give back. We've been blessed as our company grew that our philanthropy was able to grow. Our goal is to continue to grow that philanthropy. A significant part of Zero Outfitter Fees memberships is something I don't usually say publicly, is our philanthropic side of what we do and taking veterans and on hunts and things like that. So yeah, give back is a big part of it, not just because, and we do a lot of it privately. Obviously we're talking about it here, but it's not just because we feel some type of moral code or desire to do it, but there are people in this world that would just assume take our hunting and fishing rights away. They don't know you and I, they don't care about you and I. We don't wake up thinking about what rights we can take away from them.
Right.
But these are people who literally wake up every morning thinking about how they can take rights away from others. It's about as un-American as you can get. I mean, for example, I thought it was great to have both sides speaking there Friday. They thought it was horrible that there could be people there that were pro mountain lion hunting, pro hound hunting, pro hunting with a GPS. They just thought it was horrible. We were horrible people. I don't think they're horrible people. I think they're misguided and they're wrong. But I think it's great we live in a country where we can have that debate and have that conversation. So understanding that everybody listening here is give back, financial, time, or both, whatever their time or charity allows, is going to preserve the future of hunting and fishing like Houston Safari Club. And it's really important that people get behind it.
Hunting Matters is presented by Copandero Indoor Archery Pistol and Rifle Range, your premier indoor archery pistol and rifle shooting destination. Located in Oak Ridge North, right next to the Woodlands, Copandero offers two 25-yard pistol ranges, a 100-yard rifle range, and a 25-yard archery range. Whether you're honing your skills or just starting, Copandero has everything you need, including rentals, classes, a retail store, an in-house cafe, and a VIP lounge. Join Copandero today for an unmatched shooting experience. To learn more, go to copandero.com.
Dan, I'm curious to know, what do you say to critics who misunderstand or oppose modern conservation tools like GPS tracking as part of ethical hunting?
So there's two people within that, and that's the really hard part. You've got the extremists, which unfortunately is, and normally in a space of people, only 10% are the extremists on one side, 10% are the extremists on the other side, and 80% in the middle haven't made up their mind yet. In the anti-hunting world, it's actually almost like on the anti-hunting side, almost 50% of them are extremists. And that's the problem, because you can't talk to that 50%. Some of them are domestic terrorists and they want to see physical harm come to you, physical vandalism come to you. We've seen this with attacks when people wear fur coats, or with the people out there thinking they're making a statement, burning Tesla dealerships down now, or whatever the case may be. You're never going to touch that extremist base. It's just unfortunate that in the anti-hunting community, it's not that 10%, middle 80. It's like 50% of them, you can't have an intelligent conversation with them. They don't want to have a conversation with you, even if you provided the opportunity. The other 50% are willing, but a lot of times they're just placating you. So you've got to get to that 20 or 10% that are really interested and their minds are open. Honestly, Joe, what was offered to a lot of them last Friday at Arizona Game and Fish, and it was a genuine invitation from multiple different houndsmen, from multiple different companies that just turned to them and very gently said, look, I heard your speech. It was very passionate. You're 100% wrong. I say that with respect. Let me take you on a mountain lion hunt. I would normally charge you $8,000 for this hunt. I will take you for free. We can film it for your friends. And I promise you, after spending this time in the woods with us, your mind will be completely changed on not only the ethics of hunting with hounds, but the requirement for the benefit of the dogs, the benefit of the handlers, and the benefit of wildlife that we have these GPS collars. Because in these GPS collars, not only do we always know where the dogs are, but there's also a tone feature that will beep the dog if you want them to come off the track and come back. For example, if they go tree a female mountain lion and the guide can see it's a female mountain lion from a long ways away or whatever the case may be, he can tone those dogs and come back. That's less time that female mountain lion is being treed. Or if the dogs mistakenly tree the wrong animal, as soon as the guide knows that, he can tone them, bring them back, and that animal, you leave that animal without a radio collar, you leave that dog without a radio collar, they're so good at their job, they may sit on that lion overnight, stressing the dog, stressing the lion. Wildlife loses, the dog loses. So there's that component of it. I'll finish this comment by saying this. I was interviewed 4 or 5 years ago, and it was right after I'd won the Hunter of the Year award. And they said, how did you know when you arrived as a big game hunter and guide and outfitter? And I joked because I said, I don't know if we ever feel like we've actually arrived as a big game hunter. I said, but I actually have an answer for you. And it was taught to me by my team and some of my mentors. They said, the day I was the poster child for the Humane Society of the United States, I was their homepage guy holding up a mountain lion, and dozens of calls came into my phone and dozens of hateful emails came in. Some of them even threatened my kids. Most of them, they didn't even use call blocking. Joe, their actual phone numbers came through. That's how crazy some of these people are. So I was getting all these calls. This lasted for like 3 or 4 days. I was the homepage of their social media page for like 3 or 4 days. My family's getting weirded out. My guides are actually asking me like, what are you going to do? And I was like, honestly, I already told the local authorities, I think what's going to happen is I'm going to be in this limelight for like 3 or 4 days, and then it's going to be somebody else's turn. And sure enough, 3 or 4 days later, this new picture showed up of a guy with an Alberta wolf, a huge, beautiful wolf. And my phone stopped ringing. I stopped getting emails. But I joked during that interview, that's when I knew I'd really arrived. It wasn't the Hunter of the Year award. It wasn't becoming North America's largest outfitter. It wasn't zero outfitter fees. It was when I was the poster child for the Humane Society of the United States. If you're hearing of them for the first time, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the people downtown that do the dog and cat adoption. This is a national anti-hunting domestic terrorist organization that is terrorizing people because they love to be outdoors, hunt and fish. So that's when I arrived. And I guess the other side of that is that's when I knew the philanthropy side of our company needed to grow too, because they're very well funded.
I know you've had a lot of experience in the field and you've guided hunts on 6 continents. What's one international hunt that left the biggest mark on you and why?
I love and hate the question so much, right? And I know you would too. So they're all so unique. A first couple things that come to mind is my son was able to join my wife and I when he was 8 years old on our first African safari. And he was 8 years old. And I was not going to bring him at all. And this hunt was planned 2 years in a row. We were filming it for our TV show, The Best of the West. We were taking some Purple Hearts over there. And I was not planning on taking him. I had not been there in a civilian capacity. And I barely wanted to take my wife, Joe, if I'm being honest. I wasn't sure, you know. Sure. But the husband and wife PHs who run the thing just insisted. So my wife was mostly always going. Some of the Purple Hearts that were going, their wives came. And I brought 6 of our VIP hunting clients as well over about a month. I got to spend about a month there with my son. And about literally 10 days before we left, Yorka, my PH's wife's name at the time, called me and she's like, I'm going to tell you one more time, you have to bring Josh, you have to bring Josh, you have to bring Josh. I'm like, I'm not bringing an 8-year-old to Africa. And she changed my mind. And so next thing I know, I buy him a ticket to Africa. We don't tell him till about 2 days before. I'm print off because back, in 2015, you didn't have your boarding pass on your phone yet. You had paper tickets off your computer printer, right? So what I did, Joe, was I said, I printed them and I said, and Josh was in the playroom. He was 8. And I said, Josh, hey, run into the office and grab Daddy the boarding passes for me and Mom for Africa. Okay. So he comes and he brings me 3 pieces of paper. I said, what did you got? He said, oh, you said to bring the boarding pass. I said, well, yeah, you got it. But what's the 3rd piece of paper? And he goes, it's another boarding pass. And I said, what's going on here? He said, well, this one says Dan and this one says Terry and this one says Josh. And all of a sudden his eyes welled up. He looked at me and he just hugged me. To this day, I don't know if he's ever hugged me like that since. When he realized he was in Africa too. So there's a lot of different lessons to be learned there. But one of them is I didn't know it would mean that much to an 8-year-old to go to Africa. Certainly an opportunity 8 years old I didn't have. So we took him. The very first sunset we had there, for those of you that haven't been to Africa or really deep south of the equator, you'll know two things if you have been. Number one, not only do the toilets flush backwards from what you're used to, but also the man in the moon is not a man in the moon there. He's a rabbit in the moon because you're seeing the other side.
Yep.
But lastly, burning compost, burning trash, cooking food creates a different atmosphere there. And it's an extremely red sunset every night, especially in the southern 4 or 5 southernmost countries on the African continent. So, Joe, the first sunset we were there, I was holding my wife's hand and my 8-year-old son's hand. And this sunset I'd never seen before in person, only in movies, right? Or dreamed about in different books. The first time I saw one of those red sunsets in Africa, I knew that I was in the right place. I was exactly where God wanted me to be in that moment. And that was an incredible moment. My son actually ended up hunting. He took a impala that was bigger than mine. He took a warthog that was bigger than mine at 8 years old. We had some amazing memories together. He got to watch all the Purple Hearts hunts go down with me right there. We didn't get to see it really clearly, but the dust of a cheetah chasing a wildebeest. I mean, where else are you going to see this stuff?
Sure.
My wife and I's trips with family and friends, Argentina, New Zealand, Ireland, Europe. I'm not a travel snob. I just believe that this is a very big planet and humans in general don't get to see a lot of it. And what I've learned, especially in the last 5 or 10 years, is I talked about it earlier. If you get a chance to go somewhere new in the world, put your fears behind you. Not saying be stupid, do your homework, make sure you're not going to a crazy, dangerous place, but this is a big, beautiful planet and the opportunity to see it and do some things. One of the things I like to do now too, Joe, is I call them adventure hunts. So we might be there for 4 or 5 days of hunting, but then we like to stay, my wife and I, for 4 or 5 days of sightseeing, especially if you're traveling somewhere overseas, right? So if you're thinking of doing your first overseas trip and you're not sure if you should bring a spouse, yes, number one, bring your spouse. And if you're thinking about maybe bringing the kids, I'm going to say a lot of those instances, bring the kids, or at least ask your guide or PH about the kids, because if you can combine a little bit of adventure traveling, or even if they just go on their safari with you, is an incredible, incredible memory. And I'm going to use that Africa example, Joe, to answer your question, but those other countries are equally on par for sure.
So you wrote a book that's probably got one of my favorite titles. It's very memorable. It's called Suck Less at Hunting. What inspired you to write this book, and what's the biggest lesson that readers will walk away with from the book?
Thank you for mentioning it. So first of all, don't let the title Suck Less at Hunting misguide you. It is not an egocentric book. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a book of how 40 years rather of failure has led to success. I was blessed to have Craig Boddington write the foreword. Its release is actually imminent. I can tell you that now in a hardcover or soft copy. But I was inspired by my team to write it. I was inspired by my family to write it. I was a Phoenix Suns ball boy in the late 80s, early 90s. And at the time, there was a very, very famous commercial that came out from Karl Malone of the Utah Jazz. Many of you may not know who I'm talking about. But in this commercial, he's shooting free throws in the gym, and he's talking about that he's practicing while you're at home watching the game, that he's in the weight room while you're at home watching the game, that he's more focused on nutrition while you're at home watching the game. And Michael Jordan and Nike did a similar commercial in that time frame to counter it. That just basically was Michael Jordan, right, the GOAT, talking about how many game-winning shots he's missed, how many times his team has counted on him and he made a turnover, and just went down this list of all the times he's failed, and that's how he succeeded. So that was where the inspiration of Suck Less at Hunting came from. Craig Boddington, as I said, wrote the foreword, and it's 10 chapters of different components of hunting. I will also say that in the Air Force and pilot training, one of the things we always talked about was this saying, suck less than yesterday. So how did you fly today? Well, I sucked less than yesterday, because in the military, pretty much, even on a good day in the military, your boss is going to tell you suck to get better, you suck to get better, right? And that's how we have the greatest, most feared, trustworthy military in the world, because we're always trying to get better. So suck less at hunting is also a throwback to that, to just, I want to be better than I was yesterday. I want to be a better hunter, better outfitter, better dad, a better husband, better father, all that stuff, right? And so that's where it came from. 10 chapters that cover the gamut from scent control to archery to trigger squeeze to how to set a tree stand properly. And again, it's intermixed with dozens and dozens of failures. Like, I rip off and duplicate Michael Jordan's ad in my opening of my book, and I just rewrite it. So instead of Michael Jordan saying, you know, 26 times I've been given the basketball to make a game-winning shot and I missed a shot, and in mine I say, 300 times my clients and I have made a stock and missed the shot or not gotten a shot. And, hunting is a series of failures for most people, especially when they're new. And as a professional, I always expect the outcome to be successful. I really do. But I also know that every time we go hunting, it's a road game. Even if you're hunting your tree stand in your own backyard in the Midwest, it's still a road game. It's still the deer's habitat. You live in a house. They know their escape routes better than you. They know even if you have a trail camera, they know their feeding routes better than you, their breeding routes, and the way they handle their rut better than you, right? So everything we do in hunting, that despite our best efforts, from scent control to camouflage to quieter guns and bows, you name it, they still have the advantage and we suck, right? We're just trying to constantly get better. So it's a satire. I hope people enjoy it. It's designed to make you laugh and teach you, whether you're a brand new hunter or the most experienced hunter. I promised everybody in it that if you don't learn at least one thing, you get your money back. It's not for money anyways, at the end of the day. It's just to share some stories around a campfire, hopefully make you laugh, hopefully you learn something. And it was actually a lot more fun to put together. And I thought it was going to be so difficult, but when you just start putting some memories down on paper and areas where you really feel like you screwed up and they left a memorable imprint in your brain. In fact, there's a whole section in your brain on the mindset of being a successful hunter in PH that you start going, geez, I do actually have something to share, and maybe somebody doesn't have to make this many mistakes as I made, because the average hunter doesn't get the hundreds of days in the field that I get as a guide and outfitter. So they don't have as much time to make these mistakes as I've made over the years. So if I can help them be more successful, and if not more successful, at least have a little bit more fun or even be safer. There's a whole chapter just on safety and things like that. So it was fun to write. The sequel has already got a title, and we're having a lot of fun with it. Thanks for asking about that.
Hunting Matters is presented by DEA Ranch. Are you looking for the ultimate South Texas hunting experience? Then look no further than DEA Ranch. DEA Ranch offers some of the best whitetail and exotic game hunts in South Texas year-round. Whether you're looking to fill your freezer or put that next hunting memory on the wall, their professional guides are focused on ensuring each client has a memorable and exciting hunting experience. DEA Ranch offers guided hunts, professional staff, chef-prepared meals, trophy preparation, and more. To learn more, go to dearanch.com. That's dearanch.com.
I'm just curious, has the book already been released or published, or is it coming out now?
It's getting ready to come out in a very big way, very publicly, very soon.
That book sounds amazing. I got to ask you, though, if you could add one more chapter based on what you've learned as a result of a writing book, or maybe something you've thought of as an afterthought, what would that chapter be about?
Yeah, I think a deeper dive into something we talked about recently is getting over the fear of international travel. So that's not something I covered at all in this book. And it's specifically for hunting, but for the non-hunters in that relationship, just to know that you should be going on these trips where it makes sense. I think what I see, Joe, is fear. That's the word I'm going to use. When I talk to outfitters around the world, the first time somebody goes hunting out of country, it's just like my clients going to hunt in Sonora, Mexico with me, right? They see what CNN says. They think it's just a constant war all the time down there. That
cartel's going to pick you up.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I honestly believe in my heart that where I've hunted internationally, that where I've hunted in Mexico and other places around the world are a lot safer than Chicago, Baltimore, parts of Atlanta, Los Angeles. I could go down the list and say that I felt safer in these foreign countries than I felt in my own in certain circumstances. And it's really a lot just like traveling anywhere else. If it's 2 a.m, you probably don't go down a dark alley in a neighborhood you don't understand. Maybe in certain neighborhoods you're not used to, you walk in groups and you're home by dark, things like that. But when you're overseas on a hunt with a PH or a guide, they're there to escort you. It'd be like if you came to Arizona and you spent a week with me, or you went to Sonora with me for a week. Like, if you're with me, you've got to have that confidence that I'm not going to take you anywhere that I think I'm going to be in danger. So I think a lot of spouses don't go on hunting trips because of fear more so than money. They don't go on fear more so than the understanding the adventure component to it. So I think probably a deeper dive into international hunting is not just a hunter sport anymore, and to take this time to further the relationship. Like you said, look what your wife said. I mean, this is one of the greatest days of my life. Like, as a husband, there's nothing better we could hear than a spouse telling us this is one of the greatest days of my life, and that I got to share that with my spouse. So I think just that fear, as I tell my own kids, 18 and 16-year-old kids, that the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of good Samaritans that open the door for an old lady today at the mall, that let the other car go first at the stop sign, that let the other cart go first at the grocery store. Joe, none of that makes news. But there's hundreds of thousands of examples of neighbors helping neighbors every single day in this country. But it's the shooting in South Chicago that makes the news. It's the train derailment and fire that makes the news. And it makes it sound like we're constantly surrounded by disaster and stress and pain, because that's what sells newspapers, right? The controversy. So I think fear is what's keeping a lot of people, and there'll probably just be a whole chapter now that we talk about just on fear and how it's holding people back on doing something that might actually fundamentally change who they are as human beings on the planet. So I think fear will be its own chapter in the next round.
So you are a U.S. Air Force veteran. How has your military background influenced your approach to leadership, outfitting, dealing with people, and even the outdoors?
Yeah, thanks for asking. So it was very difficult actually when I first got out of the military, because in the military, especially on the flight line operations, tip of the spear type stuff that I was blessed to do, when I would tell somebody I'm going to be, at spot XYZ at 17 minutes after the hour, you knew I would either be there 17 minutes after the hour or early. There was never going to be a late. There was not going to be 1 minute late, 5 minutes late. There certainly was no thing as fashionably late. So I think professionalism, punctuality is something that was so important to me that when I first got out, actually caused me a lot of stress, because when I would have appointments and people would be 5 minutes late, well, I just wanted to lose my mind on them and give them a piece of my mind. And I had to reel it back a little bit. But a lot of professionalism, also a lot of perspective. In fact, perspective is something I talk about a lot in my keynote speeches at a lot of the different hunting conventions around the country, because once you've been in the military, you've seen the highest of highs for people when they're liberated. You've seen the lowest of lows when they lose someone close to you, or I've lost someone close to me in those situations. It gives you a lot of perspective. So what constitutes a bad day for me, when I remember to take perspective into account and how blessed I am and how most of my problems are very much first world problems in this world, it gave me a new perspective on what problems really are. Or on a hunt where somebody blows a stalk or the wind shifts or they miss and they just think this is the worst day of their lives. In some cases, literally, I just have that perspective of, hey, we're going to get them tomorrow. And, you're not worried about an IED out there. You're not worried about your wingman not coming back up there. You're not worried about a rocket attack in the middle of the night. Like, we're good, dude. Like, you don't have problems. You're on an elk hunt. You're on a deer hunt. You're on an antelope hunt. You have no problems. You're on vacation.
Right.
So I'd say of all the things that I probably took away, it's perspective of what's a good day, what's a bad day, and how bad those losses are. In fact, when my wife and I, we run our businesses, talk about stresses within our businesses, we often remind ourselves to say to each other, first world problem, right? And just how blessed we are that that's what we're worried about. We're not worried about a roof over our head, food on the table, shoes on baby's feet. And as Americans, we take that for granted, because you don't have to go far. You can go, into our own communities within this country and just across our borders and see that, I think 90% of people in the world live at poverty level.
Yeah.
And 67% of the world live on less than the equivalent of $2,700 US a year. So I think perspective, Joe, is probably the biggest thing my military background brought to me. And with perspective also comes gratitude. Gratitude for every beautiful day, gratitude for every beautiful moment, gratitude for the animals I get to see in the day, even if we don't get to harvest one of them. Just a constant space of gratitude and that perspective that I think I take with me everywhere I go.
Are you looking for an investment that goes beyond the ordinary? Wildlife Partners is the nation's leader in breeding and consulting for the exotic wildlife industry. When you invest in wildlife, you're not just acquiring a 100% tax-deductible asset, you're playing a vital role in the conservation of endangered species. Do you own land? You can turn your ranch into a profitable wildlife-driven business. And even if you don't own land, that's no problem. Wildlife Partners offers unique opportunities for non-landowners to invest in conservation while enjoying significant tax benefits and potential cash flow. So what's next for Diamond Outfitters and Zero Outfitter fees in 2025 and beyond?
So, gosh, man, I wish it's like I sent you these questions. So we have some major announcements coming to Zero Outfitter fees in the coming weeks and months. I guess I will give you a little bit of tease in the sense that only active Zero Outfitter fees clients are going to be eligible for some of these amazing new opportunities.
Okay.
Additional states, additional countries, things like that coming to our inventory. We are starting to wind down a big series of 8 or 9 weeks back to back of speaking engagements at all the conventions. I was blessed to be the master of ceremonies for the Arizona Elk Site a couple weeks ago. We had Pope and Young last week. We've got some big conventions in Atlanta for NRA coming up in just a couple weeks here, and some big shows throughout the summer. So we also have bear clients that just finished up. So, we're in April now. Bear client, spring bear just finished up, 100% opportunity. Oryx, 100% harvest. Turkey and bison are getting ready to start. So we don't really get a lot of downtime here hunting the Southwest. We hunt about 10 months out of the year, 10 and a half months out of the year. And in years where we have governor's tags, we end up hunting about 12 out every month of the year. So we're constantly on the go, 61 guides on the team. None of us let any dust settle on our hunting boots, that's for sure. And just another shout out to my crew. I could not be anywhere where we are without our Matts and our Keegans and our Marshalls and our Daniels and my admin team from Terry and Ryan and April. Just surrounding myself with great people. You've been great to me, and Houston Safari Club's been great to me. So welcome to talking to me and having us out in Houston for convention. And we've always enjoyed our time together. And again, just a lot of gratitude for the opportunities I've had with you guys and to work with your team, and looking forward to the future.
Yeah. Dan, thanks so much once again for being a guest on the Hunting Matters podcast. Check out his website at diamondoutfitters.com and zerooutfitters.com to learn more about the things we talked about here today. And once again, Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate all you guys. Thanks for your time. God bless you, and God bless your families. God bless America, and we'll see you soon.
The Houston Safari Club Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that supports the future of hunting and conservation. Wildlife and habitat conservation, youth education and outdoor experiences, scholarships, and anti-poaching efforts are just a few of the programs supported by this organization. Monthly events, an annual convention, award-winning publications, networking opportunities, and valuable resources for hunting knowledge are just a few of the benefits of being a member of Houston Safari Club Foundation. If you're searching for a group of people dedicated to protecting the future of hunting, look no further. Join Houston Safari Club Foundation today at wehuntwegive.org or call 713-623-8844. Hunting Matters is a Houston Safari Club Foundation production. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. For questions or more information, email us at info@wehuntwegive.org.